Hello and welcome back to the Coming of Cage podcast, your Nicolas Cage movie review podcast. I am one of your hosts, Derek, and I have your other host, Ryan, right here with me.
Right here with him, indeed. I am here for this podcast.
For episode 52 of the show, which is our 51st Nicolas Cage movie.
That's right. We're in the second half of the hundreds or the tens.
The back half. I don't know.
The back half. There you go.
There, yeah. And today we are talking about 1986's dramatic fantasy comedy, I guess. Peggy Sue Got Married.
Which had a lot of hype for me because
had you seen it before?
I had not seen it,
Okay.
but my girlfriend really liked this movie, or she did as a kid. And so she was excited to watch it with me, and I had heard very little about it other than like I knew it existed. So there's some of these movies that I've never heard of. This was one that I have heard of. So I kind of had a little bit higher expectations of it than I would your average movie. But yeah.
I think that's fair. Yeah, I had certainly heard of it as well. I didn't know anything about it. I did not even read the synopsis before I went
Neither did
in,
I. I was not
which
expecting a time travel movie.
I know, right? I just thought it was going to be a romantic comedy. And to that point, so the way the movie is described is Peggy Sue, on the verge of a divorce, faints at her 25th high school reunion and wakes up to find herself back in 1960, leading her to try to spot and correct the mistakes that led to her to disappointments and an unhappy marriage.
That's
Um,
right.
it's directed by Francis Ford Coppola, starring Kathleen Turner, Nicolas Cage, Catherine Hicks, Jim Carrey, Kevin J. O'Connor, who people might know as Benny from The Mummy, Sophia Coppola is in there as well, and Helen Hunt has a relatively small role.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the movie. This is still relatively early on in Nicolas Cage's career, and boy, does he make some choices
He
in
does,
this
and
one.
there was a lot of behind the scenes drama on this one. But yeah, it was something. Certainly not what I was expecting. The only thing I really knew about this movie was one of my brothers. The last time I was talking to him, I told him we were getting ready to watch this movie, and he made some quote from Nicolas Cage from this movie, but he made his voice crack.
Mm.
And he said that there's a line in this movie where Nicolas Cage's voice cracks, and they kept it in, and it's hilarious. And it was hilarious. But yeah, that was like literally the only thing I knew about this movie going in. So but the whole time, it's like when somebody tells you, "Oh, the twist is great in that movie," you know it's coming, so you're just kind of waiting for it. That's what it was like with the voice crack.
You're just waiting for the voice crack.
Yeah, I was just waiting for it.
And little did you know what else was in store for you in this one.
Yeah, that's true.
Um, Somehow this movie was nominated for 3 Academy Awards, including Kathleen Turner as Best Actress. I, without
Okay.
going too deep into
It
things,
must have been a slow year for the for movies.
it wasn't.
No,
That's
because
the thing,
there was no year in the 80s that was a slow year for movies.
right? Like this was a big 1986 was a big year. There were a lot of movies in 1986. So I was kind of floored by that, but I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I got nothing.
Yeah, the movie definitely felt kind of like a rip off of Back to the Future, but done worse.
Well, because I mean, not to jump too far ahead or anything, but like we don't really know if she actually did time travel. Like it's implied that maybe she did, but we don't actually get to know, which I think is just really kind of strange. But like just for example, like this movie, like I said, she was nominated for Best Actress. This movie was nominated for 3 awards, but other movies this year include like Top Gun, Aliens, Stand By Me, Ferris Bueller, Platoon, Blue Velvet,
Which
Labyrinth.
I wouldn't put this movie in with any of those.
No, Big Trouble in Little China, buddy.
Yeah, one of my favorite. I mean, there's several movies on there that are in my probably top 20 movies of all time, and Big Trouble in Little China is in my top three. So yeah, it's
it
Yeah.
was a good year for movies. There's far more. I could keep listing stuff. I'm not going to, but like this was a good year for movies.
Yeah, that's a tough sell.
Yeah.
I mean, I a spoiler alert, I didn't really like this movie all that much. I don't really get the hype. Maybe it's because I didn't watch it as a kid or something, but maybe in the 80s this was really good, but looking back it doesn't really hold up.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm with you. I will say I watched this with my wife, Ray, and she connected with it more than me. So maybe I just missed it.
Maybe you and I just don't have the right perspective for this
Per-
movie,
Perhaps.
you know? It's possible. But yeah, I mean I don't know. There were things I liked about this movie, but not a lot in general. So
Sure, I'm not. It's not trash or anything like that. It's just I don't think it's Academy Award caliber either.
yeah.
So
I
but
also didn't like the fact that it was like making me feel old because I just had my 20th high school reunion. And so now me and everybody I knew in high school is supposed to be fully gray haired.
all of us. I mean, I'm getting there. My beard is pretty gray, and I'm
That's true, but you've looked 40 since you were 18, so
you're not wrong.
all right. So normally on these I write notes throughout the movie and we kind of go through them chronologically. Um yeah. It's a little less chronological in a time travel movie, but we'll do what we can.
Yes.
Um Yeah, the so my first note is about the intro. It had like a really weird intro color with just like colored backgrounds.
Mhm.
And they had this theme music that made you think they were doing the Peggy Sue, pretty, 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 pretty Peggy Sue. You know that song from the
Yeah.
like 60s or whatever, but it was not that song, but it was
No,
made to sound exactly like that song.
it was a
So I
special Peggy Sue song just for the movie.
right, right. So I kind of felt like I got blue balls from it because I wanted to hear the other song, but then this is like not as good. It was just like repeating the title of the movie. So yeah. Like right in the intro, we get our first glimpse of good old Nick in his 25-year high school reunion phase on TV, and we get something I was not expecting, which is his vocal choice for this movie, his voice choice, which is
Yeah.
very similar to Vampire's Kiss. I felt like,
I think there's a ton of crossover between
yeah.
these two
It's
characters.
very much like a nasally, like that kind of voice, and he does
Very
it through the whole
good.
movie.
Yeah,
It sounds like he's putting on a voice the whole movie.
I agree.
It
Uh,
doesn't sound like this person. Looking at this person, we would naturally have that voice. I mean, granted, we've watched 50 movies of his, so we know what his real voice is. But I would not look at that person and then somebody play that voice and go, "Yes, that's that person's voice."
well, apparently both his uncle, Francis Ford Coppola, and the studio hated it. And the
And so did his co-star.
well, yeah, yeah, he and Kathleen Turner had some stuff. But the studio wanted him fired from the movie.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see their side of it. I think the whole thing, the whole movie. I was just going, I think he's trying to do like a Buddy Holly thing,
Yeah, I think that's fair.
and it was like I appreciate that choice, but I don't think it necessarily worked
Mhm.
because he seems like he's acting in a totally different movie than Kathleen Turner is. They don't even seem like they're in the same movie together.
It's a bizarre character choice in a bizarre movie. I mean, there's just a lot I don't really understand from this
Yeah,
one. And it's so early in his career, right? Like, yeah, this is 1986. So 4 years earlier was his very, very first credit in a film ever, which was Fast Times at Ridgemont High, where he has like one line,
yeah.
barely,
Also
right?
directed by Francis Ford Coppola.
Yes. And so, he hasn't done much. He certainly hasn't been a leading man a whole lot. He had done Valley Girl and Racing with the Moon, which
Yeah,
he's kind of like co-starring in,
right.
right?
Which I would probably prefer either of those two movies to this one, which isn't saying much because I really didn't care for Racing with the Moon all that much, but I think it was probably more entertaining than this one.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. But he also, so yes, he has the whole vocal choice, but the quote modern day age of his character Charlie, the 1986 age, he's also wearing like fake teeth
Yeah, that was the first thing I noticed is that his like lip was sticking out really far. I was
really
trying to
far.
figure out what that was. I'm guessing it was supposed to like emulate like veneers or some like sort of fake teeth that people get when they're successful. I don't know.
Maybe I don't know enough about that to guess. I had guessed dentures, but they're not that old. They're only
Yeah.
like, it's the 25th reunion. They're only in their 40s.
What's funny is so getting into that point, they the way that they aged up. So most of the actors were not in their 40s for this movie.
Right.
And so they had to age them up, right, for the 25th high school reunion.
Hmm.
And so basically all I could see that they did was like threw some dust in their hair. They looked like the youngest 45-year-olds or whatever, however old, with gray hair that I've ever seen. Like it was really weird. They weren't believable as old.
The
And
thing
then
is,
Kathleen Turner, when she goes back in time, looks way older than everybody.
well,
I
so she
thought
is. She is older. So she's about 10 years older than more or less anybody else playing their friend group
that's what
in
I'm
the movie.
saying. Like it was just weird.
Is
Everything was weird in terms of the way they tried to handle the ages of the characters.
Yeah, well, because like pretty much everybody is in their early 30s, early to mid 30s when they filmed this. And so you're aging them up only 10 years, give or take,
Right.
maybe
By
15 at the
like
most
spraying their hair gray.
uh,
That's it. And their beard.
on the sides,
Yeah, just on the sides though.
and then
Yeah.
everyone has glasses.
We at this prom we're at the high school reunion, you know, the beginning of this movie, and we get like this huge Nic Cage prom king photo,
Oh yeah, those are great.
which was great.
Yes.
Then yeah, we get our first look at Jim Carrey. I don't know why he's getting such high billing in this movie. He didn't do anything.
I mean, I guess I didn't do like a deep dive on his career or anything to see like what else he had done at this point. So,
He
I
didn't
mean,
do anything in this movie other than like exist and laugh.
oh yeah, no, he's in a handful of scenes. He has a handful of lines. He hadn't really done a whole lot at this point. Like he had done Once Bitten already. And I mean that's really the only thing of any real
Earth
significance.
Girls Are Easy.
Not yet.
Wow.
That was 2 years later.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so but I had him in my notes, but only because I recognized him, and now he's a much bigger actor than he was then.
sure, yeah, of
But
course.
yeah, it's weird when you're looking through the credits. He's in the top few, but he didn't again do anything. And we find out that Peggy Sue is divorcing Crazy Charlie.
That's
Everybody knows
right.
him as Crazy Charlie because of his appliance store, um, and his commercials.
Hmm.
So, um, I have casual drug usage for my next note because I feel like they were doing cocaine or something at this high school reunion.
Yes.
Yeah, which was weird. It didn't have any relevance to anything else that happens in the movie, really.
No, it doesn't because like we don't really see them doing a bunch of drugs necessarily when they're younger either. But I
Yeah.
think it's supposed to show that these people are not like, I don't know, they're partiers, I guess, is the idea. Or maybe the drug use is supposed to be there to throw some question into whether or not she actually time travels.
Or maybe it's supposed to say how rich these people are because now they're 43 years old or whatever, and they have money for real cocaine.
I mean, supposedly some of like several of them are supposed to be rich. Catherine Hicks's character Carol, she's supposed to be rich.
Yeah.
Uh, Barry Miller's character Richard Norvik is supposed to be like insanely rich, like some type of like tech guy or something.
Right.
So I mean, yeah, I guess they're all extremely successful except for Charlie.
Well, he's pretty successful in his own like local way.
Right. Yeah.
Um, yeah, so my next notes we've kind of already covered. These people don't look 43. And then yeah, bad old age makeup on Nick and dental stuff is what I put because I couldn't really tell what was going on there, but he definitely put something in.
Hmm.
And then yeah, they apparently like crown a king and a queen at the reunion, which I didn't know that was a thing. Of course, reunions these days, at least the reunions for my graduating class, have not been anything like what this reunion is. I feel like movies kind of set up what a reunion is. And mostly, as far as I could tell, reunions are a bunch of people in a Facebook group going, okay, so who wants to plan this? And then nobody planning it and them just picking a bar for everybody to go to.
Oh, I think that's the difference of, like our generation, we have Facebook, and so we see the people we want
Right.
to
That's
see,
fair.
unless somebody of course moved very far away. I've had a couple of friends who like moved to other countries and might use a reunion as an excuse to travel back. But other than that, like I still see the people I want to see.
Right.
Yeah, I can stay in touch. So I think reunions I think they are different now.
That's probably true. Um, so yeah, she gets crowned the prom queen and starts basically having a panic attack.
Yeah,
It's
which
kind of
which
unclear what happens, but it seems like a panic attack.
I mean, it certainly is. So she's supposed to be like a nervous wreck because she's getting divorced from Charlie, and he's not supposed to show up to the reunion. She's gonna go and he's not gonna go, but she's still like it's this nervous wreck. And I don't know. I don't really understand. Of course, I
Well, she
haven't
was
been
wearing
through
this
that.
dress that was like the same dress she wore in high school.
Yeah.
And so she didn't want to do that, but her daughter talked her into it. And so she's already like on edge as soon as she gets in there.
Hmm.
And yeah, so she has a panic attack and passes out.
Straight up like on the stage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as she's awakened, we see the younger versions of all her friends surrounding her. And she looks exactly the same.
Hmm.
So she's 43-year-old version of herself.
Well, I was wondering this. Do you think this is supposed to be like the quantum leap effect where like we're
We're
seeing the
seeing
real
her.
her, but everybody else is seeing that time period's correct her?
I think they didn't really think about that.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of time travel shenanigans in this that they did not even think about.
Okay.
That, we've had so many good time travel movies in the past, 40 years since this movie came out that now we think about these things. But I think the only notable time travel movie before this that was like kind of handled well in terms of real theories of time travel was Back to the Future.
I mean, probably
Prior to this, I mean,
without spending too much time, thinking on it.
yeah, there might be some like obscure older
But
movies, but I really doubt that they've tried to stay consistent with time travel theories and things like that in even older movies. But
yeah, there is
um,
a Catherine Hicks. She plays Carol. She actually was in two time travel movies in 1986,
I
which is just
mean,
that's a
good for
weird,
her.
weird little niche.
So Nic Cage shows up when she's waking up from this passing out, and he's young, right? And we get his like weird voice saying, "I also want to suck your Twinkie."
Yeah, because apparently when they give blood in 1960, they get
You get
Twinkies.
Twinkie, yeah.
They weren't doing cookies.
Yeah, because it's 1960. It pops up on this, or pops up. It doesn't pop up on the screen. Somebody says something about it. I think I can't remember. There's a newspaper. I don't
There's
know.
like a banner
Oh,
up
that's right.
in
It
the
was about the
gym.
dance or
Yeah.
graduating class or something like that.
Hmm.
So as she's like leaving the gym, there was a weird shot. Tell me if it stood out to you of a balloon.
Yes. Yes. So I think that was supposed to
There's supposed to
be
be something significant with that balloon. I could not figure out what it was, unless that time traveled with her, like it's from the high school reunion or
well,
something.
this is where things get called into question. It is from the reunion. That straight up is from the reunion because there's a guy before she goes up on stage who's holding that balloon and he lets go of it by accident and it floats up into the ceiling and he's sad about it. And then that balloon shows back up. So that throws into question, is this actually happening? Or is she like hallucinating or dreaming this?
Is it like a
And that,
Wizard of Oz type scenario?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah, so she does not look 18 was my next note because everybody else looks fairly young. Like
Even though they're all like 30.
sure, but they did pick young looking actors. I mean, Nick doesn't look anything over like 25. He looks
Yeah,
so young.
he does.
Uh I did think the fact that her dad shows up in a new Edsel was funny.
Yeah, you
Um
enjoyed that? I
a
thought you might.
little bit of car humor in there, but um yeah, that was interesting. Um who let him do this voice was my next note. Because man, I mean, when you look at like the director being Francis Ford Coppola and seeing the things that he's directed and done, and the fact that they let Nic Cage do this voice,
I mean,
fucking crazy, man.
It leads me to believe one of two possible things. Either one, his uncle loves him very, very, very much, or Nick is like the most persuasive person on the planet.
I don't know, but according to the behind the scenes stuff, he was a huge pain in the ass to work with on this movie. So I don't think it's
Well, it's unclear though, because he like so Kathleen Turner wrote this whole memoir and she said some stuff about how he acted during filming, which included like drunkenness, maybe getting arrested, stealing a dog, which I
yeah,
don't like
stealing a
know
dog.
how that works. I don't know. Did he steal the dog from the movie
I don't
Ajax or
know.
whatever? But he sued her for it for libel and they settled.
No,
So
he
like,
won.
oh, did he win?
I'm pretty sure. Let me pull this up real quick. I gotta
So
say,
so Wikipedia and IMDb conflict a little bit. One says he settled, the other says that he
yeah,
won.
Wikipedia says Cage sued her for defamation and won.
Yeah, so
So
like that leads me to believe that like maybe he
according to the
didn't.
Huffington Post, he won.
Okay. Okay, so I mean if that's the case, then like maybe he didn't really do anything and maybe she just found him annoying, which she's entitled, to do, but I don't know. It makes things very murky, you
I'm
know.
trying to read this article.
This breaking news from 1986.
Yeah, Ms.
But
Turner has yet to respond to the case. I don't know. I don't know. It's a weird thing,
it's very
but
strange. So yeah.
either way, yeah, the it's kind of confusing as to exactly how things ended up. But
Mhm.
yeah, apparently he was very difficult to work with. The stories that she told are so specific that I feel like she's not making like who makes up that somebody steals a dog on
Well,
a
right.
set, right? Like, that's such a specific thing. It's
That
like
it
that with the
totally is.
assistant on Vampire's Kiss that said he like got sent out to go catch a bat for Nicolas Cage. Like, I don't think he's making that up, right?
I'm with you. I guess I would need to know more about the suit and exactly what she said in the book because if did he get caught stealing the dog? Because there'd be a record of that, right? Or did he bring the dog back? Or like, did he show up drunk? Was he actually arrested? Because there'd be a record for that. So I don't know. The whole thing is very strange, but combined with the fact that the studio wanted him fired from the film too, I imagine he was not on his best behavior.
Yeah, that's probably accurate. And we know about Vampire's Kiss and that he was difficult on that from several sources, so including himself.
Which is only 2 years after this. There's not much of a gap between these two
Right.
movies.
So I mean, it would kind of lend itself that he was probably difficult to work with in his early years.
Yeah, but like directly after this, he did Raising Arizona and Moonstruck, both of which are like highly acclaimed films. Cher loved working with him.
Maybe it's just like the directors that he acts different with different directors. He knows he can get away with more with Francis Ford Coppola directing. And on Vampire's Kiss, it was some director that nobody knew or anything about, so he
Yeah,
knew he could do these things and get away with it
it's a
because
fair
they
point.
they were lucky to have him or whatever.
Right. No, it's
Whereas
a fair
Raising
point.
Arizona was Coen Brothers and Moonstruck was Cher, so he wasn't going to act out on movies with those people involved.
Yeah, that's a good
Anyway,
point. Good point.
um, my next is in quotes. Time is like a burrito, which is a real quote from this movie.
Yes, it is. It's great.
And even the explanation for why time is like a burrito just doesn't make sense. Like he says like time going forward and past, it wraps on itself. And then she goes like, but what's in the middle of the burrito? And he's like,
Anything.
whatever you want. It's like you could have grilled chicken in there, you could have some shredded cheese, you could have memories. Like it makes no sense. But it kind of felt like they were going for like a Back to the Future type of like quote, like a thing that people quote about this movie, and it just didn't work.
Maybe they wanted to do the chalkboard thing, but they didn't want to get sued.
Yeah, it could be.
You know?
She also makes right around this time she makes the cardinal sin of time travel, which is telling people their future.
Oh yeah.
Because
Well,
the guy that they show in the beginning part of the movie that is kind of weird, like quirky, but nice. She knows he's the smartest guy in the school or something. So when she goes back in time, she goes and meets him and is like, "Do you believe in time travel?" And he's the one that talks about time being like a burrito. And she tells him about microchips and pantyhose and like
Hmm.
all these things that are in the future that haven't been invented yet, and he's taking detailed notes. And
Detailed.
we'll come back to that at the end because there's that also raises a lot of questions.
I will
Um,
say his characters. This is Richard Norvik, that character. Everybody calls him, the big insult is to call him Four Eyes, but he never once wears glasses.
but Nic Cage does in a couple different scenes wear glasses.
Like,
But
it's
they
not
also say that Nic Cage is nerdy in this.
which is
I
never
didn't get
really
that vibe at
shown.
all.
Like
Yeah,
he's a little shy maybe in a certain
more
kind of
off,
way.
little weird, but yeah, not
Yeah.
nerdy.
No. But look, Four Eyes is not one of the better insults that you could throw at somebody, but
But
like
in the
at
80s
least
it was.
the person has to wear glasses for that to make any sort of sense.
Depends how big of a bully you are. Like if the whole school's with you, and you could call them whatever, and they'll just believe you. They'll just laugh.
I guess.
That's how bullying works. It doesn't have to be true. So then she's back at home, and the phone rings, and it's a call from her grandma, who I guess has been dead in
Yeah.
her real, but they haven't really established that or that she was really close to her grandma or anything. So this is kind of out of the blue. She again has almost like another panic attack and has to like run away. But we had no reference for her grandma or like grandpa or what they meant to her.
No, you're totally right. I mean, I guess the average like 45-ish year old probably doesn't still have living grandparents on average, but I mean, yeah,
I think they were just planning on the fact that yes, that fact you just said is true, and that this is how they can kind of get an emotional
yeah,
connection with the audience because the people that are watching this movie are probably going to be like, oh, it's like if I got a chance to talk to my grandma again or something like that, and even though that relationship hasn't been established or anything, for me, it
right.
didn't really hit me like that. I was like, okay, it's a little weird, You would think they would have played up or said like she could have quoted a quote that her grandma told her when she was a kid or something earlier, just to show that her grandma had some positive influence in her life, and
Well, just kind of
they don't
across
do
the
that.
board, Peggy's reactions are very strong,
Yeah,
and maybe that's just not me, and so I'm having a hard time relating.
that's fair. I somebody I talked to in my family that watched this movie said that scene makes them cry every time.
Okay, so
So
maybe it's just
it
us.
is meaningful for some people, but I guess we just have no heart.
Yep, we're
Um,
dead inside.
so at some point I think they're getting ready to go to a party. He's getting ready to take Peggy Sue to a party,
Hmm.
and somebody brings, I think maybe the mom brings out some Rice Krispie treats,
Yeah,
and did you notice how he was eating those? He was like, this is an audio podcast, so it's kind of hard, but
you can
he
watch
was
us.
like
We're on YouTube.
holding them. He was like holding them really far away from his face and just like nibbling like the very tip of it. I don't know because he didn't have the teeth things
No.
in when he was younger. So I don't know if it was just like a character choice or something, but he was eating them super weird, and I couldn't see anything that was happening in the scene other than watching him trying to eat these Rice Krispies. It was like he was an alien that was wrapped in a human skin and had never seen a Rice Krispie treat before and didn't know how to eat it.
Yeah, I think you said it. Like I think he's just trying to make some character choices. This that in his mind, this guy is extremely awkward. Charlie is an awkward guy who's maybe not comfortable in his skin,
Or he's an alien wearing
or
human
or he's
skin.
an
I mean,
alien.
it's hard to say. Um, we get our first look at this party that they go to of Nic Cage singing, which I don't know that we've really gotten in any of the movies
Not that I
that we've watched
recall.
thus far.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's singing. It did sound like him in some I'm sure it was, edited quite a bit, but
Well,
uh
the overdubbing or the ADR, whatever method they used, is pretty terrible in
yeah,
this
it's not
movie
good. But it didn't
across the
sound like
board.
his voice. So,
Yes, it just was synced up very poorly.
and he was dancing. It was very I will say that like seeing him as like a 60s kind of stereotypical way they were portrayed in the 80s. It
Mhm.
was in a sense like it was a lot like I keep comparing it to Back to the Future,
Yeah,
even though it's a much worse version of that. But when you like go look at like George McFly in the 60s,
yeah.
you could really see that Nic Cage was trying to do like the George McFly type of thing.
Hmm.
You know, but George McFly felt genuinely like quirky. I think Crispin Glover is. I'm not going to say he's better than Nicolas Cage. I would never say that, but I think that he really like had built a reputation on kind of quirkiness. Like that's the kind of character that he excels at. And so, it was much easier for me to buy Crispin Glover as, and he also comes across as a nerd. Crispin Glover does more
Well,
than
but
Nic
it's
Cage does.
it's portrayed that way though, right? Like he
That's
writes
true.
science fiction, and all this other
Right.
stuff.
There's
He,
supporting evidence in the actual movie rather than
right.
just people calling him a nerd.
Like he can't talk to women and he has to like write like the little script to talk to Lorraine and he's like shaking, like
Right.
I think that's the real key is I think the character development in Back to the Future is just a lot better.
Significantly, yeah.
Right. And so what we're told the characters are matches what we're actually being shown.
Yeah. I think that's probably the biggest difference. I think you nailed it. I think Nic Cage is very capable of playing a quirky character
Totally.
like that, but I think that because of the way the characters were not developed at all in this movie, that made it harder to believe in him as a quirky character.
Mhm.
Um, I did like this line, which I'm pretty sure is one of his lines. I have it in quotes. Uh, who needs physics when we have chemistry?
Oh yeah, it was a great line.
A
That was a
really
great
that
line.
probably the best line in the whole movie, honestly.
Yes. I
Um,
mean, that was one of the best pickup lines I think I've ever heard.
oh
I
yeah, it's
so good.
real good. And maybe they didn't invent that in this movie. Maybe that line was around and they just kind of adapted it.
Yeah.
But I hadn't heard it, so I think that I was pretty impressed with that. He also in this scene says that tells her I don't know what they were thinking with this, but just like out of the blue, he tells her that he's written her into his will,
Yeah.
but he's 18.
Well, but like he's portrayed as both responsible and irresponsible. Again, it's that same problem we were just talking about, right? Like this is a guy who is trying to let his dad down easy because he doesn't want to take over the family business. He's thinking ahead about how he really wants to spend his life with Peggy Sue, but he wants to make sure it's the right decision. He's planning a will at the age of like 17, 18, but he also is going to throw away this stable family business for a music career. And he also is going to throw away the woman he claims he loves on the off chance that he can meet somebody better. Like it's a very weird, inconsistently shown character.
Agreed. There's also like we're getting to this scene now, so I can bring it up. But there's also a scene when they've talked about like they were gonna wait until they were married to have sex,
Yeah.
but then this also brings like some weird consent issues into the whole thing. But she really comes on to him big time. Like she's rubbing his junk and like really trying to get him going. And at one point refers to his penis as a throbbing thrill hammer.
Oh God. The
That needs to be the
descriptors.
tagline for this episode, by the way. Throbbing Thrill Hammer.
Okay.
But
I
yeah,
hate you.
no, we need a list of like these things, like these weird word things from each of these movies. But yeah, she calls it the throbbing thrill hammer, and she's trying to get him to have sex with her, but he says no. We just talked about this, and we're saving ourselves till marriage. So he says no, and he gets kind of pissed off at her. Um, but yeah, the whole thing is like weird sexual issues because this is essentially a 45-year-old woman in her mind,
Mhm.
but she's with a bunch of 18-year-olds and that
Well,
don't
it's
know her as a
unclear.
45-year-old
Well,
woman.
some of them are 17,
Yeah, that too. I mean, they're high
right?
school, right?
They're
They're
high,
they're,
yeah, they're high
they're
school.
seniors. But also, it just raises a lot of like moral questions. Like if somebody who has the mind of a 40-year-old is in the body of a 13-year-old kid,
Mhm.
is it okay for them to then, do you know what I mean? Like,
Well, it's the opposite of big.
right. Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly. It's just like 80s had a lot of this kind of weird stuff because
Yeah.
we had this in a couple other Nic Cage movies as well, where it was like an older woman like or a man coming on to like a really young woman.
Well, I mean, in Valley Girl, we had
Valley
that
Girl
with
and the one that was it was a ripoff of.
Fast Times.
Yeah.
Oh, right,
Wasn't
Fast
there
Times.
some
Yeah.
older, younger
Hmm.
stuff going on there too?
Yeah, the
Yeah, the 80s
baseball
was really
thing.
about that for some reason.
Well, and the ratings were different, right? And in this case, PG-13 did exist. It is, but it is PG-13. But like, it was a very new rating, and I think the '80s really pushed the limit for what could be considered a PG film.
Yeah,
Just across the board, it was just kind of a weird time. I mean, the '80s has some of the best movies ever made, but it also has some of the weirdest.
yeah. Some weird, it's weird themes too in the movies. So yeah,
But
when
but to your point though, like Nic Cage's character Charlie is shown as a guy who, like, at least my take was, he desperately is trying to do the right thing, even if he
yeah, he
fails
seems
at
like
it.
he's a good guy. He's just yeah, he doesn't he's an 18-year-old, right? Or 17 or whatever. He's trying to be a good person, but also like he only has so much knowledge of the things that are happening in the world.
And he's portrayed as a little bit buffoony at times, which is fine. It works for his age and everything like that. But yeah, she just really like pressures him, and he's like, "But you just said a week ago, like we just had this whole conversation about it," and I'm really, it was a very strange scene, and she was really mad at him.
Well, he was really mad at her too. And so she goes out because she's all horned up now, horned up and no place to go.
Jesus.
She's woman blue balling. And so she goes to this guy who they alluded to in the beginning of the movie as being like he had like a football picture of him in like a football uniform, and he
Hmm.
didn't show up to the reunion.
Nobody could find him. They tried
Nobody
to
could
find him.
nobody could find him, but they were like, "Oh, he was so sexy. I would have fucked him when I was that age," and like all this other stuff. And so now she gets the chance to. She's made eyes at him a few times at the school throughout the movie,
And
but
he's
then
portrayed as like this artistic literary
but he's not a
genius.
nerd. Apparently, he's like a hipster more than a nerd,
Well, he's
I
like on the
guess.
outside, he's wearing black leather and he smokes
Right.
and
They call him a
whatever.
commie beatnik at one
They
point.
do. Yeah,
But
right.
yeah, so they spend the night together and go and fuck under the stars or whatever.
Which, okay, I have to say, so they show these shots of them riding on his motorcycle out in the real world, but that whole scene is clearly shot on a terrible soundstage.
Yeah, it does not look good. You can see like the edge of the green screen or whatever where it's like curling up or yeah, I mean
You could
it
see
did
the
not look
wall where the
good.
stars were painted. Like, you couldn't have just shot this outside somewhere.
Yeah, I say green screen, but that's being a little generous for the time period. Yeah, it was definitely like it was a weird scene. Yeah, and they
You could shoot in
bone.
somebody's backyard. I don't.
And this guy's talking about like how he's gonna like write a poem about her, but all the poems that he writes are super depressing and dark.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a whole thing. Um, yeah, we get a scene with our first scene with Nicolas Cage wearing glasses, which is a thing on our bingo card.
Yeah.
Sometimes, depending on the week. So that's fun. And then I don't remember this part. Maybe you can remember Nic Cage attempted murder.
What? Nick Cage attempted murder?
Yeah, I feel like he grabs a bat or a knife or something, and he's
I don't remember that at all.
oh, I don't, I don't. It was clearly not that important of a scene.
Attempted
Um,
murder? I don't remember
yeah,
anything
he
like
was
that.
doing something where he was like, yeah, I think he's hitting something with a baseball bat,
What?
something like that. I don't
I
know.
don't remember this at
You
all.
must have fallen asleep, or I saw the director's cut or something. Um, oh yeah. So this is where we get the voice crack. They're down in the basement having a discussion. I think it's the basement of her parents' house or
It
something.
is. Yeah.
And
I know what you're talking about. So okay, now I get it.
now
I
you
get it.
remember.
I remember there's no baseball bat. It's a pillow. He
Oh, okay.
breaks into
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Peggy's
yeah, yeah.
room in the middle of the night, and he's going to smother her with a pillow, but she
Which is just
wakes up.
glossed over. It's
Like,
yeah.
what the fuck was that?
It was weird because we just got done saying that overall in the movie he's a pretty good guy trying to do the right thing, but yeah, he literally thinks about murdering her in her sleep.
Well, because like that was so strange. That shot makes no sense in the rest of the movie at all. But the idea is, I think we're supposed to see him unraveling because she's a little all over the place. Like when she at the beginning she breaks up with him, then she wants to sleep with him, then she sleeps with somebody else. Then she's telling us, the audience, like how much she hates this man, but she wants to be with him. And I think he's just losing his mind. Um, but yeah, it never comes back around.
Yeah, it was just kind of glossed over. But anyway, they end up down in her basement at some point. I think it's like the next day or
No,
something.
it's
Or,
then
oh, it's in the morning because yeah,
he wants
she
to
hasn't
talk
woken
to
up yet.
her, and
Yeah.
he's like, let's go talk down in the basement, which I thought was kind of weird.
Yeah, it's like he just tried to murder you and now he wants to talk to you in the basement.
I mean, she says okay, and they go down
Yeah.
there.
Well, she doesn't know that he tried to murder her,
I
but
guess, yeah.
yeah, so they get down there and they're talking about the relationship and he's like, "Did we break up? Did we break up?" And he like, "Did we break up?" And he's like trying to clear his voice and it's just this horrible but you know what's funny about it is like out of context it's really funny. But in the context of the movie, it kind of worked. And I'm guessing that's why they used it because he's, like you just said, he's unraveling.
Yeah.
And
It's
so like
sad. It's sad to
he's having a
watch.
hard time like, dealing with this and dealing with
Yeah,
his emotions. And so the voice crack actually kind of worked.
I think
It's
so.
like if you go on YouTube and just like watch the clip, it's funny.
Hmm.
But in the context of the movie, it does work. I understand why they used that clip. I'm sure Nick was not happy that they used that clip, but you know, whatever. He got
Unless he was
paid.
doing it on purpose.
I
I
don't
mean,
think that the way that looked in this thing did not look on purpose, but maybe.
okay.
He did play it off well though, so I don't
Yeah.
know. Um So the commie beatnik gets with her. They have another date at this club.
His name is Michael.
Yeah, the commie beatnik, and so they have this date, and he says that he has plans with her, and that this is what's going to happen. They're going to move to Utah, which right away I'm like, okay, because who moves to Utah from California or wherever they were?
No, they're definitely in SoCal. Like they're in
Yeah,
some like rich. Everybody's rich wherever they are. They're
yeah.
all loaded.
Why is he going to go to Utah? There's only one reason that most people would know about, and that reason is correct because he wants to have two wives. He already knows another girl out there, and they're going
Who's
to move.
raising chickens,
Yeah, who's raising chickens, and they're going to move out there, and they're going to have a polygamous relationship. So,
and the women will support him by raising the chickens while he
well, he
writes.
creates art. Yeah,
Yeah.
which seems like not the most fair of situations ever, but if it works for them. And then yeah, it just so happens that while we're having this discussion and she is not about it, Charlie shows up and starts singing at the club. I guess auditioning is what is implied.
Yeah, I think he's trying to get like label representation or something. Maybe an
Right,
agent.
right. And she falls in love with him again. And she goes to talk to him and she says she wrote a song for him. And my note was, what song did she plagiarize for him?
Yeah.
Because all she's doing this whole movie is taking things that she knows are successful from 86 and then trying to give that information to somebody in 1960. And the song is yeah, she loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
right? Which he he likes, but he has to tweak because he changes to like she
Do do
loves
do. I
you,
think.
do or
Yeah.
or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, man, it's meant to be comical, that he thinks he's so highly of himself he's can't he doesn't think these lyrics are good enough. But yeah, I thought that was funny.
Yeah. Well, because she makes some comment, I think it's a little bit later about how she's going to go discover the British invasion or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. She keeps hinting at future events to people in the past. But then she goes and visits her grandparents,
Yeah.
which is a nice moment. But it turns out, I mean, very conveniently, that her grandfather is
This
a
is
time travel enthusiast
the
and
movie
is a
takes a
member of
turn.
a cult of people that like do time travel rituals for other time travelers to get them to go back to their time.
Now, just for those listening out there, any of you are lodge members, if you could let me know how accurate this movie was in portraying a lodge, I would appreciate that.
Also, if you're just listening to this podcast and you think this sounds kind of fucking crazy for a movie that like these extremes all happen, this is real. I mean, we're not making this up. There is literally like an underground time travel cult that
That
worships time travelers.
Look, I was already kind of like the movie was losing me already at this
Yeah.
point. I just wasn't, it wasn't gripping me. I wasn't relating to it, whatever. And then this happens, and I was like, what the fuck am I watching? And I love time travel. I am a sucker for time
You
travel
are.
stuff.
That's one thing I know about you. And yeah, this was not scratching that itch for you, but I feel like you would be a member of the time travel group, honestly. You'd be that grandpa.
Oh my God.
But yeah, that's a whole thing. And then they do like this whole time travel ceremony.
in like ridiculous
They
hats.
have like these over the top hats that look like LARPing wizard robes, essentially. And at one point, the power goes out while they're doing the ritual. And in that exact moment, Nic Cage's character, Charlie, kidnaps her from the ritual without either of them making any noise. And so when the lights turn back on and she's gone, they all just go, "Oh, well, I guess we sent her back in time," even though she's still a person that exists in this time period.
Nope, she's gone.
Yeah, that was one of like the many plot holes in this movie that I'm like, okay, these are supposed to be time travel people, and they think that it's okay that this person just disappeared, even though it that was
She's
just like
supposed to be there.
her soul
Yeah.
is from a 45-year-old, and that would be what traveled through time or whatever.
Well, because
But
that's one of the big differences between Back to the Future and this is that there aren't two of her,
right,
right? So you're right. It's like her soul, her being, her spirit, whatever,
right,
however you want
but
to define it.
that 18-year-old body still would exist in theory after the soul moved back to the future or whatever.
You would think so.
Yeah, but apparently not. Apparently the whole person just disappears and then reappears sometime before the 25th anniversary. I don't know.
I mean, well, no, because she like wakes back up,
Well, yeah,
like
we get to see that he kidnapped her.
right. Which how did he keep up with her? She took like a massive bus trip somewhere.
It's unclear.
Eh,
But yeah, that after the kidnapping, she goes back to the present day. I don't remember exactly how that happened. She
no,
fell
she
asleep again or something.
well, yeah, she wakes up. Oh, you mean like when how does the time travel?
Right.
How does she
Yeah.
get back home kind of thing? Yeah, well, so the big crux of the film is that we're leading up to is that on her 18th birthday is when she got pregnant with her first kid. I don't remember if that's the daughter or the son. The daughter's Helen Hunt's character. We
Right.
never see the son. He has like a line that we hear, but um so they get married because she's pregnant, right? And of
Right.
course, it's 1960,
Shotgun
right?
wedding.
Different times, right? And so we're leading up to that moment. It is the night of the lodge teleportation time travel party is her 18th birthday, apparently,
Yeah.
which I don't, her grandparents never even wished her a happy birthday, I don't think. But her and Charlie end up having sex in this greenhouse, I guess. And then that's it.
It's pregnant. Yeah.
She gets pregnant, so she completes the loop and goes back home.
Right. And so she wakes up and sees a book that's now dedicated to her that was or wasn't before. We don't really know. This is where it gets really kind of funky, right?
Right.
Because, in Back to the Future, when he goes back to his time, things are different, like little things. It's similar, but now he has this truck that's super fucking cool and I want one. And he's got like his dad is more confident and, the book, he's an author now and all these other things. It's been a while since I watched that movie, so I might be
Oh my
confusing
God.
it with one of the other ones.
No, no,
But
no. You're definitely right. Both of his parents are like more confident, cooler, hipper people,
right.
right? And yeah, the book's
Biff
got
didn't
the
push him around anymore because he, had stood up for himself in the 50s.
it's a lot of stuff changes,
Yeah, but
you
it's
know.
all relatively minor changes in the grand scheme of time travel. Um,
Well, that's because yeah. We don't need to
but
talk Back to the Future.
in this movie, she comes back after giving a shit ton of information to people about the future and treated Charlie like really badly and fucked this other guy and all this other stuff. And it seems as if nothing has changed
Except for
except
the
that this,
book.
but we don't know because we didn't see that book before her thing. We didn't see if the dedication was there before.
I mean,
So we
that's
don't know.
true, but like so she wakes up in the hospital and Charlie's been there. He hasn't left her side kind of thing. And he shows her the book, right? And she says it must be somebody else. But I mean, like it doesn't make any sense. This ending doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
also like, but the biggest plot hole for me is that guy, right? That she gave all the information to, uh, who was successful in the beginning of the movie.
Sure.
But assuming this had all happened, wouldn't he have treated her much differently when he sees her at this reunion, knowing that she's about to go back in time and tell him all this stuff?
Well, I don't think it's that type of loop. I think it's the type of loop that we get in Back to the Future where it hasn't happened yet. She has to go back to kickstart the new timeline. So when
But
she
in that
wakes up,
timeline, the
well,
whole thing.
so this is where the problem comes in. When she wakes up in the hospital bed, we don't find out what happened to these other people. We don't know what
Right.
Richard, if he is the same or not. We don't know. Like, because earlier in the movie, Carol's character at the in the beginning at the reunion, she's a single woman traveling the world. She's rich, right? But when she goes back in time, Carol wants to get married and have kids. Like, we don't
Right.
know what happens to any of these people. All we know after the time travel happens is that this book is dedicated to her. It may have been dedicated to a different person, and her and Charlie are
Gonna get back
better,
together now.
I guess,
Yes.
maybe.
The other plot hole now is that in the previous timeline, she only slept with Charlie.
Uh-huh.
In this plot line, she slept with the commie beatnik
That's
and
right.
Charlie within like 2 days of each other.
Uh-huh.
So in theory, that first kid could have been not Charlie's.
Absolutely. I was going to bring
So,
that up. Yeah.
again, the ending is really unsatisfying for me. I mean, granted, I don't think you and I are necessarily the target demographic for this, because clearly it means a lot to other people other than us. Your wife really enjoyed it. I'm not actually sure how my girlfriend felt about it watching it now. We didn't really talk about it a whole lot. Um, but
Yeah.
like I knew my mom really liked this movie. Um, and so maybe it was just we weren't the target audience, but yeah, for me, the ending was really unsatisfying because it didn't we don't I mean, I get that it's supposed to be ambiguous or whatever, but give us a little more clue than just an inscription in a book that is unclear, you know?
I'm with you. I'm with you 100%. I mean, the reason that like The Wizard of Oz works is because they lean into the, well, it was just a dream,
Right.
right? And because it's the same actors playing different characters, right? And all these other things. So you lean into that. And so it leaves a little bit of ambiguity. Maybe Oz is real, but no, it's really just this hallucination when she got hit in the head. This movie leaves things like, who the hell knows? We don't get to see anything. We see Charlie, and nothing has changed with him because we don't get to know, right? Because the big difference in the original timeline is that he tried the music career and it failed, so he took
Right.
over his father's business. The quote new timeline would have him give up his music and just do the family business. But either way, he ends up in the same spot, so we don't know what happened. So it's
Yeah,
the whole movie doesn't answer any questions, which at some point it's left so unanswered that it's kind of a cop out.
I agree. So something we've been doing here for the last few episodes is looking at some of the reviews online, trying to get a second opinion of versus ours, because me and Derek have our own little bubble here sometimes, and it's sometimes hard for us to look outside that bubble or see other viewpoints. But um, I've got a few reviews that we can talk about here. The number one top critical review on Amazon is I am kind of a Cage fan. This is from Drinky Crow on the Rocks. I am kind of a Cage fan. Never saw this when it came out. Regret renting it. Weak storyline, kind of a rip-off of Back to the Future. Just a vehicle for an uncle to give his nephew's career a boost. The best part is Cage vocalizing his lines like Pokey from Cartoon Land. I'm sure this was to annoy Turner. I think it worked. It's one of those movies that should have stayed in the can. It's rough. Um, let's see. Oh
I mean,
yeah, this film was not terribly funny, which I don't think it was ever billed as a comedy that I saw. So that seems like a weird review. Kathleen Turner looks like a 30-year-old or older trying to play a teenager, which is accurate. The quality of the film was poor. Then this Back to the Future film turns out to all have been a dream. So this person had their own theory apparently.
yeah.
Let's see. Those were low stars. There's far more high like 10-star reviews than there are 1-star or 2-star reviews.
I mean, look,
Um,
Siskel and Ebert gave it 2 thumbs up in 1986, and Roger Ebert himself gave it 4 stars, calling it one of the best movies of the year.
yeah. The thing I'll say about this movie is like 10-star reviews is that a lot of them are very wordy. Whereas like other movies that we've watched when we look at 10-star reviews, they are not wordy. And so I feel like these people feel like they need to explain why they think this movie is that just tells me that this movie is harder for people to like because they have to explain to everybody in detail why they like it.
Hmm.
Um, 10 out of 10 from Critics Voice video. That if you knew then what you know now, would you do a lot of things differently? This is the question. This is a beautiful film about life and regrets, dreams, hopes, heartbreak, nostalgia, destiny, and a family we all experience. A must see. So that's um, something. I don't really know that I agree with them on all that, but insane movie from I Davis 844. This movie is awesome. Kathleen Turner was amazing as the title character who faints and goes back in time to the early 60s. In that movie, she looked really young. She really did look like she was 17, even though she was 42. Nic Cage was pretty good as her husband Charlie. All I knew was he never gave up trying to win Peggy back because they were divorced. Turner deserved that Oscar nomination that year. I was mad that she didn't win it. It made people question, does time travel really exist? It was really thought provoking. Also, Peggy had unresolved relationships in her life. That added a lot to it. I feel like that is the most important message in the movie. It made me wish I could go back to my time and bond with relatives. And I do have some unresolved relationships in my life. Like my grandmother, Thelma Jean Davis. She died in 81 and I was born in 87. I always wanted to hear my grandma's voice instead of looking at her pictures. This also made me develop a huge crush on Kathleen. All I can say is it was insane. I love you, Kathleen. I
Okay.
feel like that one, a lot of these reviews read a lot more into the movie than what was actually there. I like this review. 10 out of 10. Sweet is the title. Lovely film. I like the bit when Peggy Sue got married, which isn't in the movie.
Which is not in the movie.
So
Yeah.
that's extra funny. Anyway, the reviews were not as interesting for this movie, I didn't think. Like I said, the most interesting part for me was seeing how wordy they got with the reviews versus other movies that we've got. Um, and
Yeah,
I,
I think that's fair.
yeah,
It's like you need a special personal connection to the
yeah,
concept, which is fine. You know, if you enjoyed it, like it's not like an offensive movie or anything like that. So by all means, if you like it, that's fine. But um, yeah,
yeah,
not really for me, I guess. The other two Academy Awards it was nominated for were cinematography and costume design, both of which I think, given what else was released this year, is interesting choices.
agreed.
But hey, what are you gonna do, right?
Well, at this point in the podcast, we usually rate the movies. We
Yeah.
have two scales. We have a scale for just general quality and a scale for caginess. Um, so Derek,
Hmm.
overall quality, what are your
I
thoughts?
I think, like I said, it's not like an offensive movie. It's not trash per se, but I would rather watch several other films first. And I just find it fairly confusing and incoherent in a lot of ways. So I'm gonna give it a 6.
A six? Yeah, I was thinking a seven, so I think we're in a similar area there. I think the
Okay.
internet, if they cared about this podcast, would probably not be very happy with us over this, but because the people that seem to like it really, really like it,
Well, we're rarely
we're not those
controversial,
people.
I think, but
Well, that's because nobody listens. Except for you, whoever's hearing this. Thank you for listening. I appreciate you. And I'm sorry if we offended you by, hating on your favorite movie.
hey, let us know what you rated it as.
Sure.
All right, so caginess.
Yeah, I think it's higher on caginess because he does do this weird pokey voice through the entire movie.
Yes.
Um, and he is a little over the top. He does dance. He's in a boy band, a 60s boy band. I'm thinking like a 13 or 12.
Really? I was gonna go higher.
I don't think, I mean, the cagiest thing about it is the voice.
I mean, not just there's the mannerisms, like when he's eating the Rice
Well,
Krispie
that's
treat that you
true.
pointed
Okay, I'll
out.
give it a 14 because that Rice Krispie treat was. But I think beyond that, it's mostly just the voice, really, that is. There are some mannerisms, but when you're looking at if 20 if Vampire's Kiss is a 20,
Well, I'm
I
trying to
mean,
like so Moonstruck, for example, you gave it a 17 and I gave it a 14.
Yeah, I think this is less cagey than Moonstruck.
You do.
Yes.
Okay, so I thought it was on par with Moonstruck.
Okay. I mean, we have
So
different opinions. That's
yeah.
okay.
So okay, so what are you giving it?
I'll give it a 14 for caginess.
Okay, so you're gonna give it a 14. I was gonna say it was on par with Moonstruck, which I gave a 14. So that's what I'm gonna give it,
So we actually agree,
just in different ways.
but because we disagree on Moonstruck.
Right.
Yeah.
It makes it a little weird. So okay, so a 6.5 on quality and a 14 on caginess, which I mean it's not Moonstruck because Moonstruck we rated much higher quality wise.
Yeah,
You
that's
know, it's a
fair.
Moonstruck's good. So all right. So that's that. Now we have to figure out which movie joins the wheel O Cage. So we spin a wheel to find out which Nicolas Cage movies we review, and now we have to replace this. So joining the wheel is The Best of Times, which is a TV movie. Now, this one's going to be a little bit tricky because it is the very, very first credit he ever had. I believe it was actually a pilot for a show that did not get picked up. So, this is going to join the wheel, but we're going to have to do a little bit of legwork and see if it's even watchable.
Yeah, we'll figure
So,
that out.
yeah. But hey, to find out what we review next, you'll have to watch our Wheel O Cage. You can go to comingofcage.com, follow us at Coming of Cage, subscribe on your podcast app of choice to listen to our episodes, or you can subscribe to the Derrico Studios YouTube channel to watch the show, as well as watch our Wheel O Cage and our Cage-O Bingo series, where we play bingo as we watch these movies.
Yep.
Um, Ryan, anything else for Peggy Sue Got Married?
No, don't worry about watching it. You aren't missing much.
That's fair. All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll catch you next time.